Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to another special edition of the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. We last left off discussing yeast farting in a jar, or as you might know it, the circle of life. The bullet points to that is your mind and body need to be in harmony some way, shape, or form. Even if your body is sick, you still got to take care of it. And if your mind is sick, you definitely got to take care of it, but you need to blend the two together. But we also discussed a pyramid: mind, body, and soul. We didn't go very much into soul, and that's because after an hour, I just wanted to take a break because my own mind and body were getting a little bit frazzled. But the yeast farting in a jar analogy is apt. Just as right now we're looking at fully developed life, a tree swaying in the breeze, just like what our souls should be. Now, when I talk about a soul, I'm not ascribing to any particular religious interpretation. I don't officially have a policy on the afterlife. Silverlight has no opinion as to whether you wind up going to a better place, whether you wind up non-existing, whether there's a reincarnation process. There's lots of possibilities, and the only people that know for sure have already gone through it. Silverlight hopes nobody has to go through it sooner than necessary. But the reason why we started with the mind and body was very simple. Without your mind and body being imbalanced, your soul kind of gets neglected. I'm going off the example of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You ever seen it? It's this little pyramid-shaped thing, and it's fantastic. Starts off with the basic, basically need food and water. Yes, this is true. There are those people that claim they get all their energy from the sun, but none has ever been able to successfully demonstrate it. So for now, I'm not going to shoo it out of the way. I'm going to say remains unproven. To the other end, where people are having steak and lobster dinners with rich chocolate decadent desserts and their choice of a 1969 Remy Martin. But really, take the example from the Buddhist monks, who are like the really strict ones, who are perfectly happy with a bowl of rice. Your body does need some cabbage in there, but that forms a whole protein. And that's all your body really needs. A little bit of exercise, a little bit of fresh air, your body's good. Even if you're in poor condition and you've hurt yourself and, well, not necessarily hurt yourself, you've been hurt and all that sort of things, your body is pretty good at repairing itself. And our technology is pretty good at assisting the body to repair itself. Because remember, our technology does nothing more than help the body heal itself. Your body's still the one doing the healing. Your mind, same basic principle as your body. Consciously, subconsciously, it has its influences. And the body can tap into the subconscious of your mind. So, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is very good at describing you take care of the basics and then you get more and more advanced. Kind of like every single training program anybody has ever been on in their entire lives. Learn the basics, then we show you the good stuff. If you decided tomorrow you want to become a professional basketball player, you're going to spend hours learning how to dribble. And then hours learning how to keep it away from defenders, and hours learning how to penetrate the zone. And then they're going to start giving you shots. Because shooting is realistically the most fun part of basketball, but it's also realistically one of the easier parts of basketball. They teach you the fundamentals first. Life is the same. Now, your spirit is the final level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so it needs the mind and body to really be in balance before it can be brought into balance. Now, the spirit is hard to define. There's a term called the numinous, which means something between you and the supernatural. I'm paraphrasing a bit from William James, but that's the way we're going to define it here because I don't want to drag any particular religion into this. I've read religious texts from around the world. I've read pseudo-historical texts from around the world, and we could get into an hours-long discussion on them. But for now, let's just agree that somewhere out there, there is a creative force. And in my experience, that spirit is a viable thing. I look at some people, for those of you in the Toronto area, Mike Pinball Clemens, a former football player, now president of a couple of organizations. He exudes spirit. He's a religious person, but he just has this infectious personality. Wherever he goes, he walks in the room and everybody starts to smile. There's something in his demeanor and his body that just brings joy. And that is a positive spirit. Whether you agree with his religious interpretations or not, he's one of the people I like to call they get it. There's the opposite example too. I'm sure you've met a few of these people. And if you do, if possible, get them out of your life. Sometimes they're called energy vampires. And they walk into the room, it's like you pop a balloon. Everybody's, and they go frozen. And this person comes in, whether they're friendly or not, and they just suck the air out of everybody. Now, they're not necessarily bad people. I've met people like this that are well-meaning and well-intentioned, but just something in them turns to the dark side, for lack of better. Thank you, George Lucas, for giving us this vocabulary. But there's a third group, and I've encountered them. They're very mysterious. I like to call them nulls, as in there's nothing there. You look into their eyes, and again, they're intelligent, they're capable, they can do anything, but there's no soul there. I'm sure it is somewhere. It's been neglected, it's been malnourished. It's that joie de vivre, or even the hatred of life, just isn't there. They're just completely blank slates. You could put them in a zombie film with them going around, and they'd be perfect extras. Never have quite figured them out. Like I said, they can be perfectly smart, perfectly capable, but there's just no spark to them. That thing that really animates us. And even though I just said the body and the mind are necessary, the spirit is also equally necessary. See, if you do nothing and sit at home all day and don't eat, you're going to be in pretty bad shape. You're not going to be obese, but you're going to lose strength. You're going to lose the ability to move around and clean yourself, and you're going to die. Same thing if you're obese. Well, we all know about the obesity epidemic. I know about that. But the spirit operates on much the same principle. It needs to be exercised. It needs to be flexed. And I don't mean going to a church necessarily. If that works for you, fantastic. Silverlight has zero problems with you applying this to your life in whatever way you choose to do that. I only ask that if you choose to join an organization, make sure they're not advocating harming anybody else, and make sure they're not saying, "Oh, you can join, but your family can't because they're not believers, so you can't talk to them anymore." Don't let them isolate you. If they meet that, then probably they have at least something going for them. Yes, we can go into the atrocities of the past, but how many thousands of years do we want to go back? Everybody has bones in their closet. Let's just let the past die at the present. Kill it if we must. Most people call themselves spiritual these days. At one point, countries were primarily Roman Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, or the various Asian religions. And I'm kind of clumping them together because the three Abrahamic faiths, as they're called, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, their history is a lot clearer. And that's simply because it's easier to pinpoint where their sects are on a chalkboard. For example, the Muslim people have the Sufi sect, who believe in ways to achieve mysticism. You've heard of the whirling dervish? Well, that's exactly what it is. They're spinning in a circle and dancing, trying to get their brain chemistry hyped up enough so that they can have a mystical vision. The people right now that are discovering ayahuasca, which I knew about that for a while, but suddenly Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers is saying how it's made him a better person. Got no issue with it. Doesn't fit into any of the faiths, but it's the way some people choose to experience their particular vision of faith and to give sustenance to their spirit. Can't blame people for wanting to be closer to the Creator and the source of all wisdom. It's what we all want to do. And that's the purpose of the Spirit. We live, again, in spiritual times, but where people don't really practice anything spiritual. Silverlight prays. I'm not going to tell you who I pray to, but I do pray, and I respect people who do. I have my issues with pretty much every religion, but that doesn't mean I don't respect it. Remember the monks that I was talking about earlier, the Buddhist monks who have strict diets? These monks have a diet where they will not eat garlic or onion because picking it kills the plant. They would have no problem with an apple. They would have no problem with an orange. But they will not take something's root and kill it. That's how strictly they believe in their vows. And that is an interesting idea. I don't necessarily agree with it because, your body is important to the whole thing, but it's an interesting way to approach spiritualism. Eat only what you need. Can you imagine that in a world with, supersized McDonald's Big Mac with extra bacon, extra sauce, and, French fries? And admit it, when you get French fries, you ask for the McNugget sauce and whatever they have. Yeah, we all do the same thing, basically. But these guys have learned to fill their stomach and no more. The body is disciplined. Their mind, they spend extensive periods meditating. So their mind is disciplined, and they seek to grow spiritually. This is a philosophy we don't really have in the Western world. We have the get rich quick, get laid quick, get everything that you can quickly, because we have a very intense dose of the Thanatos complex in the Western world. Death is coming. Death will be here. So the only thing you can do is do everything quickly before it can get a hold of you. It leads to fast women, fast cars, one-night stands, and all those kinds of things, none of which is particularly helpful spiritually. I'm not saying that they hurt you. No judgment. Silverlight doesn't judge. But what Silverlight does do is observe. Let's go back to the negative spiritual people for a minute. The reason I do this is so that way I want to talk about this positive spiritual people, the difference between the two will be more emphasized. And also, people tend to remember what you said at the end, and I want you to remember the positive stuff. So, see, just because the prairie dog is out of his burrow and running around doesn't mean the prairie dog doesn't have a plan. But the negative energy people, you know what? It's not their fault. That's the energy that they give off. And they're living their life in a way that makes them as happy as they can be in their present condition. Generally, a lot of them are miserable, I find, but there's a few that revel in it. I guess kind of in the same way that a sadomasochist revels in it when they prick their finger. I know that's not the way it works. I'm using an example that's accessible for the common person. So they enjoy their misery. My mother is quick to judge people, and if somebody asks, how are you, and you mention anything, she likes to say, oh, you enjoy your ill health. Well, no, don't enjoy my ill health, but you just asked how I was, so I just don't talk about things like that to her. And the negative people, remember yesterday we were talking about repression? The negative people have repressed so much over so long, it's like that spark inside of them has inverted from a happy, positive spark to a negative one. And I've met a lot of children in my time. A whole lot. And Most of them are happy, they have that spark, they're a joy to be around, etc. But there's a few that very early on show that negative energy in them. Remember what we said before, pain is purely personal. Your experience matters to you. And I'm not here to poke a hole in that bubble. But what I am saying is, whatever has happened to these kids, they could have a charmed life. They could come from a rich family where they're surrounded by people all day and they have everything they ever want, but there's still something they know they're lacking. And just because they can't verbalize it or express it doesn't mean it isn't real. Look at people with high autism and Down syndrome, and they still feel. A lot of them have very positive sparks inside. You look into their eyes and they're expressing their joy at a given event. And yeah, I haven't seen enough of them to say what the proportion is, but in the main population, I see these negative sparks, and it's a shame. Not all, again, but I tend to find the ones who are like that think they have a healthy work home life, but don't. They've given themselves to the dark side. They've decided, I'm going to go to work for 10 hours, and then when I come home, I'm going to eat, drink this bottle of wine, or 2, or 5, or 10, go to bed, wake up the next day, do it again. And they're so mad at it. I shouldn't have done that in the same voice. They're so mad at it that that's all that they know. And they're like robots, but they're aware robots. They keep doing it over and over, and they hate it, and they don't know how to escape, and they've repressed it. This is my idea. It doesn't necessarily run true, and like I said, some of these people have felt that way from the beginning. I had a manager of mine who, okay, this involves a little bit of hockey knowledge. I'll see if I can get through this as quickly as possible. His backup going through the minor leagues was Curtis Joseph, who later became internationally famous as part of the Canadian men's hockey team and a couple local hockey teams, and was a multimillionaire, while the guy in front of him wound up driving a truck. Now, unfortunately, this happens to a lot of athletes. People all think, but kids all think, when I grow up, I'm going to be the next baseball star. I'm going to be the next, Magic the Gathering champ or whatever. And life is full of disappointments because life is full of people. And there's always somebody better than you. Remember what I said yesterday about the fear of failure? Well, that fear of failure can kill some people. The boss that I mentioned was crippled by his fear of failure. And because of that, that turned him from what I imagine was once a positive person to a very negative energy vampire. And I mean literally energy. Nobody wanted him around. When he went away, the mood in the room perked up. Everybody was happy. And yeah, different planet entirely. And it was him. The common factor in all your relationships is you. I believe I've said this before. And think of how you're dealing with all your relationships. And if everybody in the world doesn't want you around and they don't want you to be around them, chances are you're the factor. And you need to examine your life. You need to figure that out. Because it's such a poisonous reaction that not only your mind and body going through a difficult time, but your spirit is as well. Your spirit has sucked itself in and become kind of like a mini black hole. I don't like to talk about the dark stuff for too long. It's worthy of study, but it's really hard to prove a spirit exists according to scientific criteria. So the reason it's called a supernatural is because we haven't figured out how to define it as natural yet. Does it exist? Oh, absolutely. There are phenomena that we haven't even begun to measure. Look at dark matter. They have just found the first way to detect it. Detect it, not measure it, not do anything, but just to say it's over there. That's entirely what we found. So While there are some things I'm willing to dismiss as, hook'em and trickery, I'm not willing to dismiss all of the paranormal out of hand. And I'm not willing to dismiss the idea of a spirit or a spark. So let's move on to the nulls, where they've been neglected so long, their spark has contracted to either nothing, or perhaps, maybe, they never had it in the first place. I don't know which. I've been on this planet a long time, and I only really discovered the nulls about 15, 20 years ago, and I didn't really know how to express that because the vocabulary for this type of person doesn't really exist. Because we don't go around talking about spirits and souls and everything. It's really kind of personal. So think of this. This is your personal chat with Silverlight. The nulls, like I said, I imagine, in my world, I like to imagine every baby is born happy. I know it's not 100% true, but that's the way I like to picture the world. Every baby is born with an equal chance. Don't shatter my delusions down in the comments, please. Because I won't be able to argue with you, and, well, not argue, I won't be able to disagree with you, but I won't be able to prove you either. But these nulls are kind of at that undeveloped state, just failure to thrive. That's a good way to describe it. Failure to thrive. The way failure to thrive works is, back in the days when they didn't have ethics committees or any of those things, they would do things like they would take 3 monkeys, and the one baby monkey would be left with its mother, and that monkey would grow up and generally be healthy, happy, functional, etc., because the mother raised it right. The second monkey they would leave with a teddy bear, and it would grow up. It might be a little bit socially stunted, but it went well enough that it was still able to relate to the rest of that monkey tribe. And they had a baby monkey isolated. It was given food, it was given water, but it died because it's called failure to thrive. It doesn't have any ambitions. It has nothing to look forward to. And I think that experiment, as cruel as it is, has some pretty devastating ramifications for the modern world. These nulls, these soulless people, do their jobs. They're like I said, they're like little robots, little zombies. They go to work, they come home, they engage in social activities just like everybody else. They're not complete monsters, but there's just nothing there. There's no spark. There's no spirit. There's no other way I can describe it. It's just, these people, you've looked into them, and it's like you look through them because they simply don't exist. Again, these people can be perfectly competent. They can be pleasant to have a conversation with, but there's nothing there. They have allowed their mind and body to go out of balance yet again. And their spirit has been utterly neglected. Unlike the people that channeled their dark energy inward, these people never got affected by it. I guess you could say they're the neutrons of the spiritual world. Nothing interacts with them. Don't know what to say or do about them, if anything. Maybe it's meant that we need to have a certain number of nulls around because maybe there's only so many spirits in the spirit jar. Maybe the human race is already well past its capacity and only 1 in 5 are getting souls. Don't know. Don't have an explanation. Not my problem, because the people I interact with all have souls. Got the negative ones out of my life, and not that I'm avoiding the nulls, but there's none in my immediate vicinity at the present time. So let's work on the positive souls. You know what? My wife is a positive soul. When she comes in, she can annoy me in ways that I can't even describe, but you know what? Can't live without her. I'm addicted to her totally. Lovely. Our little girl just lights up the room with her smile. Like I said, Mike Pinball Clemens comes into a room, everybody is attracted to him as a positive soul. I'm trying to think of more famous examples, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The people that get it. You don't need to be part of a religion to get this, but I've noticed that there is a correlation between the two. Now, there are atheists who are perfectly happy, and atheists that will, quite frankly, debate me on the existence of a soul or a spark or whatever I call it, and they'll do so happily. They're not going to be mean. They're not going to be aggressive. Well, they might be mean if they have a good joke. I mean, take your shot by all means. But that's their prerogative, and I got no problem with that. But the fact these light souls exist, we've all encountered them. You talk to them for a couple minutes and you just walk away feeling a tingling sensation that you feel like, yeah, I'm motivated. Even though we weren't talking about it, now I'm motivated to go home and fix the drains in my house because I've been putting it off for a couple of weeks, and now I got this boost of energy from this little supernova of energy that's walking around in my life. These are people that have achieved that really rare balance in the pyramid. The body, the mind, and the soul. The mind is a peculiar roadblock on the way to the soul, because you reach a certain point and you start to question things. At least anybody with a modicum of intelligence, and even people who aren't so intelligent, do question them. Some people like this wind up as conspiracy theorists, and they tend to be more towards the negative side, but I have met a few positives, and yeah, they just question everything, which is a logical thing to do. And I encourage everybody who listens to question everything, but be rational about it. And other than that, you do wind up questioning at some point, well, where is the Creator? Why am I suffering in all the ways that I do? And again, your personal suffering is your personal pain. There's no way to measure it that's possible. Only you can live your life. But we've all said, hey, why does God allow bad things to happen? And there's a book on this. Why do bad things happen to good people? The zip shot of it basically is God gave us free will. And he does say God in the book, so I'm going to stick with his interpretation. God gave us free will. Because of that, God is no longer all-powerful. Because we have the ability. I have the ability right now to walk next door and punch my neighbor. I wouldn't, but that would be my free choice. And it's also my free choice to accept the consequences. Let's just say my neighbor did something really bad to me. I don't know. Whatever it is, something that like setting fire to my house and kidnapping my daughter kind of thing. And I punch them in the face. Well, you know what? They're going to get consequences, but I'm going to get consequences too. If I get a particularly sympathetic judge, then maybe I get away, but a lot of judges are going to say, you committed assault, you got to do some time. And a particularly vicious judge who maybe just had a horrible case, and again, their pain is their business, might sentence me to a couple of years in prison. And I might justifiably in that situation ask, why do bad things happen to good people? I did something that's very natural. Neighbor sets fire to your house and kidnaps your daughter. Yeah, that's a pretty good reason to lose your cool. I doubt any judge would really lose their temper at that point with you, but I could understand you losing your own temper. So it's a logical question to ask, and especially as I documented with so much suffering going on in the world. It's very easy for people to turn their back on the spiritual side because we look around and we're the yeast farting in a jar. Our lot in life is to die, and ultimately we don't see a way out that we can actually put our faith in because we can't measure it. I can go right now and measure any of the cars on this street. I can measure any of the houses. I can touch them. I can prove they exist. Faith and spirituality are completely another matter. There are ways to show people that it exists, but there's people who are very, and I don't use this in a negative way, who are skeptically minded. Now, I'm not talking about you're skeptic, oh, you're getting your information from blank news source, which is, false and bogus and wrong and horrible. I'm talking about real skeptics, like Silverlight, who I'm on the lighter side of skepticism because I'm willing to humor a belief as long as it isn't hurting anybody and as long as I can see some kind of proof. Other people are on the harder side of skepticism, where unless they can measure it, it doesn't exist. Skepticism has a spectrum. And as I said earlier, the difference between me and a lot of skeptics is that I'm willing to put things into the unproven category. I am willing to dump things into the complete nonsense category, don't get me wrong. But the difference is I'm keeping an open mind. Remember that yesterday? I mentioned keeping an open mind. It's important to keep an open mind because, like I said, can't prove a ghost, can't disprove a ghost, but I have had experiences which strongly suggest that ghosts exist. I have had experiences that strongly suggest some sort of aerial unknown phenomena exists. Notice how I don't say UFOs, notice I don't say aliens, but my personal experience says that. Does this inform anybody else's experience? No. Matter of fact, one of my closest friends is a pretty heavy-duty skeptic. He lets some things through, but other than that, he wants to measure it. He wants to see it. So my experiences don't make sense to him. I've seen a moonbow. You know what a moonbow is? It's a rainbow, except it's at night. It's one of the most beautiful things you can see. He's never seen it, and there's not a lot of stuff on the internet about it, so he has it kind of in that very unproven category and just about to be dumped into the woo category. And that's understandable. It's a logical phase for people to go through. Question things. My little girl is starting to the point where she's questioning everything. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? It's frustrating, but at the same token, she has the right to ask those questions. Because if you don't answer those questions, your soul, your spiritual side, the spark that's in you will fade to nothing or turn to the dark side. We need our minds, like I said yesterday. Body and mind need to be in harmony. And then we can, as I said today, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then we can start developing our spiritual side. And the spiritual side involves understanding things. Now, the physical things are easy. The economy, even though there's 3 layers of the economy, of which you and I are on the lowest. And I can tell that because I get to see who listens to all this stuff. We're on the lowest rung, but I can sit here and I can prove it to you with statistics. Okay, here's us. Here's the Millionaires Club, the perks that they get. And here's the billionaires and trillionaires. And they're not getting just perks. They're getting this whole unrestricted access to the land that nobody else can possibly imagine. That's true. That's measurable. It's something we can do. But when you ask me, is there a creator? I can only kind of point to everything and say, look around you. Like the old adage about a tornado doesn't go through a junkyard and assemble a 747. Yes. The same token over millions and millions and millions of years. Well, let's make it billions because that's the age of the universe, 14 billion years roughly. Over 14 billion years, something could evolve out of that junkyard that it would be able to assemble a 747 if there were 747 plans dropped in that junkyard. Maybe we are unique as a species, not because we're special, but because the chemical concoctions and cocktail that creates life is only available on Earth, and maybe we are the first life to evolve in the universe. That's what the satellite data at present suggests to me. Or the other stuff is so far away that it's 14 billion years away, and by the time we hear it on our telescopes, we're not going to be humans anymore. Sorry, I hate to tell you, but evolution hasn't stopped. As a matter of fact, we're moving closer to the spiritual animal as described by, oh my God, who is it? Charles Becker. The spiritual animal, which is we are an animal functionally with our hands and our body and our mind and our soul. We're able to comprehend completely complex ideas like the fact that there might be a God, there might be dark matter. And the same token, we're still here, must eat, must drink. We still must keep our body and mind going. So we're in a relatively unique place among Earth's species. Keep that in mind when it comes to your spirit. It needs to be nurtured. It's not that spiritual people don't self-destruct. It's more spiritual people are more secure in their place in the universe, or at least have a sort of roadmap of how to work things out. It's not a perfect roadmap because, like I said, this is all immeasurables. But I'll tell you this, when I have a problem, I start asking questions. What do I need to do to fix it? I start making plans. Literally, I get out a sheet of paper and write an operational plan. I'm ex-military. This works for me. I don't particularly like doing it, but I list a whole lot of tasks, easy stuff. Make sure you call Gary Barnes tomorrow in regards to the comment he mentioned about having a job. Okay. Make sure you call Canada Revenue Agency to follow up on whatever. And you make that list, make some of them hard, some of them easy. You just try to accomplish one or two of them a day. And the good thing about that is you're rewarding yourself. You cross one or two off a day, you say, hey, my list started with a full page, and now I'm down to 5. I'm making good progress. Pat yourself on the back. And that is one way that you learn to develop yourself spiritually. Now, why do I say that helps you develop yourself spiritually? Because you're giving yourself a reward. You're complimenting yourself. You did question. You did struggle. You did wind up having to go through hell that nobody else had to go through. But the end result, your list is empty. You're working on your second list, and nobody else can say that but you. You accomplished all that stuff. Makes you feel good inside. Gives you a little bit of pride. That puts your mind and body back into some sort of balance, and it takes your spirit just that little closer to being happy. You're not going to get happy by finding all the dates that you want, whether that be dates with people of your sexual preference or dates off a date tree and you happen to love dates. Stuffing your mouth and stuffing your genitals with what you think satisfies you doesn't really raise your consciousness. But doing activities that you know you can do doesn't have to be complicated. Depending on your ability, depending on your need, just organize it and just chip away at it. It's a small something, but can lead to you feeling better about yourself. And that makes your spirit more centered, a little bit brighter. Maybe you like owning a pet. Having a pet is a good thing, whether it's a goldfish, whether it's a cat, whether it's a dog, whatever the heck it is. Sometimes it's good to tell something about your problems. And you don't necessarily want to have any advice. You're not doing this for sympathy. You're just downloading your problems. It's a good thing. It's a healthy escape. It helps nurture that spirit. But like I said, the most important thing you can do is ask questions. If your life has gone to hell and you're asking, why do bad things happen to good people? This is the best time to ask questions. And you might come to a different conclusion than Silverlight. I'm not jealous. Mine is not the sole way to truth. Mine is not the sole way to freedom. But the fact is, asking those questions is the most important thing, and learn from them. Like I said, there's lack of understanding and a lack of ability to do anything turns you in against yourself. Opening your mind and asking questions opens your spirit to other possibilities. Now, you may argue with me about the existence of a spirit, and I'm not sure why you've listened to 40 minutes of this so far, but I appreciate it if you do disagree with me and you've given me that much of a chance. So let me put it another way. There's your mind, there's your body, but there is another force to humanity. Even the most skeptical, scientific, measuring, if I can't put my finger on it, it doesn't exist person has to admit there's more to the world than a mind and a body. We see it all the time. Scientific experiments prove it. When they discovered sprites up above the Earth's atmosphere, they were astonished because nobody had ever seen them before. When they found the Homo troglodytes, I believe it was, the hobbits, whatever they called the hobbits, and it was in Indonesia, I believe. It astonished people because nobody thought human evolution had happened out there. Science is a wonderful tool, and I am totally pro-science. But at the same token, I'm just trying to encourage science to be always searching for better methods. Because some things we sit here and claim, 98% of the world's scientists agree that there's a problem with global warming. You know what? I don't care whether that statement is right. I want a solution. Okay, we've established that. You've had all the funding in the world. Give me a solution. And that's what I don't get. They keep talking about this, but we don't ever hear a solution. Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. Not just, why is the world polluted? An excellent question. And yes, humans do contribute a hell of a lot of pollution to the world. I will not debate anybody on this. It is true. But what can we as humans do about this? There's potentially a huge industry where more people could be making money, with more jobs, and more prosperity in the world. And that would give more people a chance to be able to sit back, ask questions, and maybe become a little more spiritually fulfilled. So the bullet point to this is your mind, body, and soul must be in harmony. Your soul grows by asking questions about the order of the universe. Now, you're never going to find all your answers to the question. I have one lovely question about Genesis that has never been answered, and it probably never will be. But keep asking, because that's the only way you can become a truly balanced person, is to have all three pillars of the human experience, because we are a human experiencing life. Not saying we live in a human simulation, because I do not believe that, but we are experiencing life, whether we're a spirit driving this body like a robot, or whether there's some other type of explanation. That's the human experience. You must balance your body. Again, you don't need steak and lobster every night. It's nice to have a treat once in a while, but realistically, you can get by on very little. Your mind. You got to take care of your mind. Your mind is one of the things that can blast you over, and it won't even be conscious. It'll be your subconscious that turns against you. And your soul. Ask questions. Don't just accept the status quo. And make sure you ask meaningful questions, ones that can be answered. So with that, we're going to temporarily bring this series to a close. I'm sure at some point we're going to revisit it. But we wish to thank you for listening to the Silverlight Show. If you did like it, please please hit the like button down below. Share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. Please buy a book from the link down in the comments. Every book from that link helps this channel out because they're authored by this channel. And with everything else, maybe you should be asking a question. Why I wish you all to have a fantastic day? Well, the reason is because I hate to see anybody suffer. So I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.